A new house comes with renovation priorities, and at the top of our list is privacy and security. So the first proper project is a side gate, which is the topic of this video, and the second is a long fence at the rear of the garden, which will be the next video. As well as security being a priority, as you probably know, these larger scale, outdoor, timber structure type projects are also the ones I enjoy the most, so it seems like a good place to start. As things stand, the side access to our garden is open to the front of the house, so the other reason for a gate is to stop our cat Arlo from running out into the road. There are a few challenges. One, the gap for the gate is pretty narrow, so having a treated post on the wall will eat up too much of the width. Two, I don't have a wall on the other side, only a hedge, so I'll have to install a post instead. And three, if you remember, we want to use this side door for access for what will be a boot room, so we need a code lock of some sort to make coming and going easier. First up, the door. Being at the front, I wanted it to look decent and decided, mainly for convenience, not to make it myself. I had a look about and really liked these metal-framed hardwood gates, but that was out of our budget. But I reckon I could get a similar colour from a cheaper pine gate, so I purchased one from eBay, sent the dimensions I needed to the seller, and it arrived a couple of days later. If you go looking in the plain timber section of a builder merchant, you'll notice that some are labelled whitewood and some redwood. When I hear redwood, I automatically think of giant sequoia, but in this case it refers to pine, which takes stains and dyes a lot more readily than whitewood, which is spruce. It's not a distinction I was aware of until now, but will come in handy for future furniture builds. The gate is made from redwood, so should take stain well. A rummage through the garage turned up this old cuprinol water-based stain that the previous owners had left behind, in the colour of golden brown, texture like sun hopefully. I also had some leftover Osmo oil. I first tried out the stain on a test stick with both 1 and 2 coats applied with a brush or wiped on with a rag. Abby liked the 2 coats with the brush, so I set about applying it to the gate. It goes on rather grey, but turns to its golden brown colour as it dries. I think this process is quite pertinent to cladding garden rooms too, and I get the impression that many of you feel like you almost have to go for something like Western Red Cedar or Siberian Larch, but you don't. If you want the look of timber but have a smaller budget, stained pine cladding can look really good, I think. If you ever have a fresh fence installed, you'll notice that over just a couple of years it turns grey, a process known as silvering, which is caused by sunlight. It looks fine on a fence, and some people prefer that look for cladding or gates, but I'm not such a fan. Staining wood will slow the process, but in order to stop it, you need to apply a UV oil, and Osmo is highly regarded for this. Unfortunately, it's reflected in the price. To apply, you can use a paint or foam brush or microfiber roller. It needs 2 thin coats, and the first needs to dry completely before applying the second. It also comes in various colours, so you can skip the staining stage altogether. And in Blue Peter fashion, here's one I made earlier. I think it's been about 5 years now, and the oil has stopped any silvering of the wood, with the exception of any horizontal surfaces, as the oil doesn't deal well with standing water, so it's no good for something like decking. After a light shower overnight, I could see that the oil was doing its job, so I moved on to the post that would attach to the house. The smallest treated post available is 75 by 75mm, which was too wide, so instead I bought a 44 by 44mm redwood plain square edge timber and stained and oiled it to match the gate. The cross braces on the gate must run from the top of the opening side to the bottom of the hinge side, so on the back side of the gate it's the right side where my hinges need to go. If you remember, this is exactly the same principle as adding packers to my window frames in part 12 of the garden room series, as that's where the tension needs to be, otherwise you risk the door or window sagging. It's nice to apply knowledge I've gained from one project into another, and I'll elaborate more on this idea in the fencing video. I had some heavy duty hinges, but they were too big for the post, so I thought 3 lightweight T-hinges would be fine, and I found some screws that were short enough not to poke through the other side. I could then cut the bottom of the post to length and a slant to the top to allow rainwater to run off. To attach the wall, I'm using 3 masonry bolts, and I marked up the post so that each would attach in the middle of a brick rather than through the cement, so as to provide a stronger purchase on the wall. I then drilled a hole in the post at each of these points with a drill bit the same diameter as the bolts, but I want the head of the bolt to be flush with the post, so I found a spade bit the same width of the washers that I'd be using, which act to stop the bolt from pulling through the wood over time. I measured how deep into the wall I wanted the masonry bolt, and therefore how deep I needed the spade bit to go, being mindful to leave a good depth of wood to hold the bolt. Because I drilled the large hole first, the spade bit wandered about a lot, so what I should have done is first use the spade bit and then drill through. Live and learn. I treated all the holes with wood preserver as well as the bottom and top of the post. The eye of the washers were a touch too small for the bolts, so I found an old file, attached it to my drill, put the washer in a vise and filed away at the insides until the bolts could slip through okay. I then offered up the post to the wall using a rock to lift it off the ground, drilled through the holes to mark the locations of the wall, and then used a masonry bit to drill to the depth I needed, using some tape to mark the depth on my drill bit. I tightened up the bolt and it felt very secure. I think it would be a good idea to silicone around the post to stop water getting between it and the wall, so I'll do that next time I have my caulking gun out. I then used a paving slab on the ground for the door to sit on while I attached the hinges, and all was well. For the other side of the gate, I need a post, and the green wire fence marks our boundary. I asked my neighbour if he minded whether I went over a bit, and he said it was fine, but I didn't want to take liberties, so I opted for a 3x3 post rather than 4x4, which probably would have been stronger. I'm going to cover installing post holes in the next video, but as an overview, you want to have around a third of the post in the hole. So I dug around 65 to 70 centimetres and poured some stones in the bottom for drainage and to aid positioning of the post. I then closed the gate and used some timber offcuts between the gate and the post to allow for the swing, and clamped it all in position, ensuring the post was plumb both ways. I then half filled the hole with water and poured in postcrete, which sets in around 10 minutes. I think I must have gotten frustrated here, so I didn't film, but what happened is when I released the clamps, the post curved inwards towards the door, so I couldn't close it. The post must not have been very straight, and I should have just used a 4x4 post, which doesn't bend so easily. But after a bit of thought, I rectified the issue by attaching a timber bridge across the two posts, which held the hedge post in plumb really well. To do this, I had to re-glue the offcuts on top of each post, which does look a bit odd, but doesn't bother me too much. To stop the gate swinging outwards, I attached a strip of wood to the post and then mixed up some concrete to create a fall away from the post to stop the rainwater collecting around the base and causing rot, and then attached the wire fence to the post with hoop nails. I purchased the code lock from Screwfixed. I've used one before on my last set of gates, and the design has improved markedly since then. It comes with a template you attach to the gate to mark all the points to drill, and I did an okay job of chiselling the latch and the strike plate. Because of the length of the deadbolt, the keypad on the front overhangs the slats of the gate, so I fashioned a small piece to fill it in, and when glued into position, I thought it looked rather seamless. In terms of costs, all these things I had already, and then bought the following, which came to just shy of £230, which I thought was pretty good considering I didn't make the gate myself. So that's the first proper project done. I'll show you the location of the next project. Oh, here he is, plotting his escape no doubt. So at the back of the garden we have a very sad looking gate, which again doesn't offer much security, so I want to replace that with taller double gates. The garden then tapers down to the bottom, so I want to replace this short mesh fence with a proper 2-metre fence. I've not built a fence before and it's not the easiest site to learn on, but I'm up for the challenge and the woods are a really nice setting in which to work. So here we are on the outside in the woods, and even though there's loads to get done in the house first, I can't help but let my imagination run, so here's an idea for the future. We have road access through the woods, so I could buy a trailer, bring it into the garden and build one of those tiny houses. How great would it be to take off for a summer and travel around Europe in one? One thing at a time though. Oh, and it was a red kite in my earlier video. They nest in this tree, which is great to see. I think Island Hopper Stewart was the first to identify it, so you get 10 points. I don't know what that means, but well done. It's good to see some ornithologists among us. I'll see you on the next one.